A perfect storm, the unintended consequences of Act 10. Due to rapid ELL population growth, the need for resources, and Act 10's budget cuts. I first came to believe that Common Core would be the main state policy issue that local policymakers and educators would be engaging with due to accountability policies and the standards that would shape their programming. However, after initial interviews, I realized that's not what local policymakers and educators were concerned about, and I had to go back to the drawing board. So I thought about it and I came up with new research questions that better reflected the data that I collected. How did local actors in a rural district interpret and make sense of the dissolution of a successful program according to their professional expertise for the growing Latino student population? How did a state policy Act 10, which did not directly or even implicitly address Latino students, become the primary instigator according to local actors in restricting their ability to choose and implement programming that would best serve their students? And how did the unintended consequences of Act 10 affect the rural district in creating policy and programming for the education of ELL students? Using a process-oriented approach to case study and emergent design, I realized my subjects were not interested in talking about Common Core's effect on their programming, but actually want to talk about how Act 10 negatively impacted their ability to program for ELL students.
It started out when Act 10 first happened. It was just a shock. I become a little emotional when I talk about this.
So let me ask you about Act 10. Effectively eliminated most collective bargaining for teachers, but also provided districts some relief from paying into health care and pension costs. 6 years later, good or bad thing for the state of Wisconsin?
I was against it to begin with when it was proposed. Part of the problem was that, well, first of all, did it save money? Absolutely, by taking money out of teachers' pockets. I mean, that's how the money was saved. And in order to pass Act 10, it was necessary to have divisive rhetoric around teachers and public servants, and that happened because there was the haves versus the have-nots.
Act 10 increased inequity between districts in the competition for bilingual education teachers because a rural district like Leipzig could not afford to retain its bilingual education teacher because it could not provide financial benefits that wealthier districts could offer.
In today's world, certainly important and beneficial to be multilingual, English, Spanish, and with China being a major trade partner, perhaps Chinese. Schools in our area are trying to teach these foreign languages, but right now there is a shortage of instructors. News Channel 5's Andrew Ruiz joins us now to explain the shortage in Spanish instructors and what's being done to fix it. Andrew?
Yeah, Kelly, they're having to think outside the box for this.
You look at the high need areas over the years, bilingual education has been on the list every single year.
The school year is just about to start, but many districts are still scrambling to fill teaching positions. The demand is even higher for bilingual teachers, especially
for elementary, which continuously needs bilingual teachers.
Act 10 consequences, marginalization, and the negative impact on ELL students.
Their language instruction is in a second language other than their mother tongue, and they have to stop learning their first language in order to start learning a second. Then academic cognitive development is what suffers. Students who aren't able to continue developing cognitively in whatever language is the strongest. I think that's the biggest problem with school programs that do not allow for students to continue developing their native language.
Leipzig used the liberty and freedom provided by the bilingual bicultural statute to create an ELL program they believed through empirical evidence best met the needs of their students. Leipzig was proud of their ELL program, but then Act 10 was passed. They could not retain the teachers for the DLI program because they lacked financial resources to compete with surrounding wealthier districts, thus limiting their ability to serve their ELL population because they had to disband the program because they lacked the staff to maintain it. Instead of increasing administrators' freedom in running the district, Act 10 actually restricted local control and administrators' ability to exercise their professional knowledge regarding best practices for ELLs. Act 10's restructuring of the teacher labor market had the unintended consequence of rendering Leipzig uncompetitive in current market conditions and unable to maintain the capacity to fulfill their vision for a bilingual student population. This study aims to further the critical analysis of market-based decision-making and techno-rational approaches to creating policies to prevent policy spillover that create unintended negative consequences that disproportionately affect marginalized and vulnerable communities. Act 10 did not directly or even implicitly address Latino students, yet it created unintended consequences such as restricting Leipzig's ability to choose and implement programming, which administrators and teachers argue prevents them from providing ELL students the highest quality education possible. Act 10 hurt vulnerable student populations, such as their Latino students, by creating market conditions of marginalized, vulnerable rural school districts. By giving voice to local policymakers and actors burdened by the unintended negative consequences of state policies, I hope that future state policies are better assessed for potential spillover and unintended consequences to prevent further inequity.